you know that you're a human being, right?
Yeah.
Do you know
A human being?
you know that you are the smartest of the legumes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tether Radio podcast, the only podcast keeping you from spiraling out into the infinite abyss. I'm your host, Daniel, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and co-host, Joseph.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, brother.
How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing... Well, I guess I've been doing... I've done better. I stayed up too late last night, and I'm old now, so...
What time's your bedtime normally?
I would say it's weird for Megan and I to be up past 10.
You know, my preference.
Yeah.
When when I was just in LA by myself. Mm-hmm. Because Martha had been, was in Atlanta or whatever. Mm-hmm. We still had the apartment out there, and I got into this routine of going to bed at like 9 or 9:30. Yeah, and then was up at like 4:45 or 5, mm-hmm. and it was fucking awesome. Yeah, it's just unreal. It's just unrealistic to like do unless you unless you can just absolutely just lock everything the fuck down, you know. Yeah. And you have no variables, right? Well,
and that's the other thing is like, dude, that is not the schedule that most people keep. And when you have to deal with other people, you know, then it's like,
yeah, totally.
So, because I completely agree with you that if I could, I'd be in bed going to sleep like 9. Well, honestly, basically the same time, and then up at like 6 and functioning from like 6 until like whatever, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and then have like the afternoon off kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that's not especially having a kid, it's like you never have time off. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, that's cool. That's cool. So
stuff going well with you, man? You have a good week?
Yeah, man, things are good. You know, just we are just working away, man. You know, working hard to build a business and do the thing and
build an empire.
It's all good.
Word.
But yeah, it was funny because you and I were talking about that the the news cycle was a little bit odd, this week, and not as but
not as robust.
not as robust. But man, it's like there's a lot going on that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of like slow burners kind of thing.
Yeah, man, and I know we don't have anything. I hate to bring this up because I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, right? But like. Dude, this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, yeah. Epstein, yeah, is blowing my mind.
Yeah, which I think that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, it's like I was hearing. I'm not going to get into it because it would be a huge rabbit hole, but like. It was just hearing some details around like how his first trial went. And my God, like the number of people that were connected to this guy at one point. Yeah. And then the just like I don't think I could handle the truth. You know what I mean? Like if somebody sat me down and they were like, "Here, read this. This will tell you what people actually do." That are in these crazy positions of power, right? Like here are 5 stories of like the craziest shit that people in power, kind of pull off, right? It's like, dude, bunga parties and the Lolita Express are like the tip of the fucking iceberg.
Well, I feel like you could compare it to sitting down and reading the truth about all these scenarios. You could compare that to being a Facebook moderator.
You know what though? Like that it's funny that you say that because I had that thought because I saw something on Reddit and then it led me down to like, you know, like the subreddit of like public freakouts or whatever, and one of them, you know, had to do with something kind of tangentially related to the Epstein stuff, and then I was like, I watched these things for like 20 minutes, and I was like, God damn, I feel like my brain is just this like garbage mush glob now, you know, after like looking at all these ridiculous things. But anyway, so yeah, we may have to talk about it later in the episode or next week.
I was gonna say we ought to put it on the docket for next week because I'd say it'll be padded out a little bit more. Because I mean, it was kind of new material this week, and I think that I would think that some stuff will have evolved by next week. So I went ahead and put a note down to try to we'll drag the internet to find some better write ups and stuff about the actual progress of the case or trial. So totally. But so I wanted to mention this shit real quick because this is not really new news, but you've seen all this like shit about people like fucking licking ice cream and putting it back and like all that shit, right?
Yes.
Did you see this one about the mom that
yes, the tongue depressor
filmed her fucking daughter licking a tongue depressor and putting it back? I'm failing to fucking understand. Like, I don't even see how that's funny. You know, we're like, I mean, I just don't. I don't know. So it's just what is so crazy. Have you ever read the book The Circle? No. But we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, it's about this fictitious tech company that sounds a lot like, you know, Google, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, spoiler alert, plug your ear holes if you haven't read it but want to. But you know, basically they have. You there?
Yeah. They're basically building like a surveillance state, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right. And so miniature cameras are everywhere. Everything's recorded. Mm-hmm. And so I honestly think that that's what's going on with a lot of this stuff is like. And then it's kind of force multiplied by people's need to perform, you know, for like you know, peer to impress their peers and the people that they think actually give a shit about what they do.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like, dude, stupid people doing crazy shit. Yeah, I mean, this has been happening for forever. It just hasn't been recorded. You know what I mean? Like
they just haven't had a fucking stage.
They just haven't had a stage. Yeah, and I just think that like the absolute full force of the law should just be like, you know, just thrown down on these folks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know why. Like I don't know. I just can't. I was just thinking about just trying to be. You know, put myself in the situation of being, you know, 16, 17 again. Like we did a lot of shit, but we did shit to like kind of push the boundaries, right? Like the computer monitor thing, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't a part of that, but like my point is that like that was like it wasn't. I don't know. I mean, like spitting and shit and licking shit and like licking food and then
that's the other thing is like I don't really.
It seems really like crazy destructive and pretty insidious.
Well, in addition to the fact that it's like, I mean, and not to, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how anybody would get enjoyment out of this or like think it was funny or any because you don't even get to see. Like the actual end result kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but here's what I think the goal is, right? I think the goal is that you know, they're just like, oh my God, Daniel is crazy.
Yeah.
Tell him what he did. He went into this store and he licked this ice cream. He put that shit back.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so disgusting. That is so gross. He is crazy.
Yeah.
Like that's the goal. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's not like I mean, you and I have talked about this before, man. Like it does not seem like a cognitive leap to be like, okay, then what happens, right?
Yeah.
But like second and third order effects, man, people just can't wrap their mind around that shit.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, we are rewarded in 2019 for being, I mean, yeah, I guess I'll just suffice to say, you know, we don't go down this, right?
Yeah.
Like we're rewarded for, you know, reacting instantly to things.
Yeah.
Right. Or
we're like a knee jerk reaction culture at this point.
That's exactly, or I should say, we are rewarded with instant reaction, right? And that instant reaction is like really has hijacked people's brains, man. Dude, you have got to watch the new episodes of Black Mirror.
Okay. Yeah.
Like a 10. I'm telling you, the season 5 is only 3 episodes, and these were 3 of, if you can just watch them and don't really, if you can just put yourself in a mindset where you just are like absorbing it, just like watching it cross your screen, and then take a step back, it's fucking crazy. It's crazy how accurate it is, right?
Yeah. Well, dude, the thing is that these motherfuckers are not that creative. You know what I'm saying? So that it's kind of like, this shit is happening.
Dude, it is absolutely happening. Absolutely happening.
So,
and then one other last thing I just wanted to mention here just real quickly before we hop into this thing, okay? Did you read the thing about Scarlett Johansson? Have you read this? So she is getting a ton of backlash, all right?
Yeah.
Because she said that actors should be able to portray anyone.
Wait, what?
Yes, because people are saying, no. If it's an Asian character, it should be an Asian actor. And she's like, wait, like the whole purpose
of acting is not being yourself.
Right, and is to be able to like you know, force or not force, but like suggest this different perspective. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just,
that's incredible.
It's really interesting. We're at like an and we're going to get into this because there's an article here that I was going to bring it up, but like why facts don't change our minds, which is on this today, on the doc today. But we're in this really weird place where people are just like the magic is gone. You know what I mean? And it's like the magic is gone because there's so much insight and data and information as to like what's happening. Yeah. But then that's also like really confusing. Because you're like, wait a second, what? Is that really the way that it goes? But I was like watching this thing the other day, this brief blurb. Do you know who Rip Torn is?
Yeah. He died, didn't he?
Died recently, yeah. So Rip Torn was on set, was on the set of this movie in the 70s called, hang on 2 seconds.
Yeah, Rip Torn, known for his role in Dodgeball. No, just kidding.
He was on the set of a movie called Maidstone, okay?
Yeah.
Norman Mailer was the director of Maidstone. Norman Mailer was known for like being a really provocative director because he would like berate his actors and like would like, you know, be, you know, abusive. Today probably
like
wouldn't be acceptable.
Kubrick kind of thing.
Yeah, like really, really crazy. But I mean, you got to think like, dude, these are like you wouldn't have. I mean, this is like the brutal fucking truth. Yeah. You wouldn't have had, you know, Picasso or Bukowski or these people that everybody's like brilliant. Like they're fucked up. Like they see the world in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't live by your fucking rules. Yeah. So no, they're not going to be your next door neighbor in your fucking apartment complex. Like it's just not the way it works, you know? It's not, and it's like, you know, with this different perspective must be chemically driven by something that is different than you. And it's like the reality of that difference in like the real world is crazy. And so anyway, long story short, Rip Torn, Norman Mailer was pushing Rip Torn, and Rip Torn was like, you know, supposedly like really leaning into this character, right? And wanted to, whatever. Anyway, he attacked him with a fucking hammer on the like between takes.
Oh wow!
beat him in the head with this hammer, and then Norman Mailer was like bit a piece of Rip Torn's ear off or some shit. I mean, watch the clip. There's a video of it, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, Norman, baby, come on, you know I got to do this. And he's like whacking him with this hammer, and he's like, you fucking crazy man, you like, it's like,
what?
But dude, but here is the thing, right?
Yeah.
There is a level of artistry where you must delaminate from reality. Like Conor McGregor talks about this, right? The fighter.
Well, that was kind of the isn't that the concept behind the what is it called when actors like yeah, go ahead. Method acting. Yeah. Because that was kind of what Heath Ledger did to get into like the Joker character, right?
That's exactly right. And what a lot of people don't know about Heath Ledger is that
oh, fuck you.
Yeah. But you're right. Yeah, you're exactly right. So anyway, all right, we should move on.
All right, let's cruise, dude, because I've got some decent openers. So I just wanted to mention the stop licking shit and putting it back. Like, just fucking come on, guys. Not that our listeners are any of these fucking morons that are doing it, but like, shit, dude. If you've got friends that think that this shit's funny, just fucking backhand them. So anyway, so I pulled this one from Fox 43. And I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce this. Canestiga, I guess. Canestiga man facing DUI charges after attempting to convince neighbors he had time machine and was from the future. So this dude, Jason Kolb, he's a 42-year-old, and he's facing DUI charges because of a disturbance where he tried to convince his neighbors that he was from the future. So he approached a group of neighbors and told them it was the year 2015, according to the police record. Then he tried to convince them that he had a time machine activated in his trailer, and he was from the future, which was 2019.
But what did he use as proof?
Oh, yeah, exactly. This is how this man wanted to prove the fact that he was from the future. He attempted to use dates on his mail and a can of oysters with a 2019 expiration date. I was just like, what in the flying fuck, man?
Yeah, but read the last sentence there.
Yeah. So during his arrest, it was also noted that he was found to be in possession of a small baggie of white powder. So I'd say that old Jason Kolb wasn't only imbibing in booze. I think he was partaking in some other illicit drugs.
Yeah, so. Yeah. I think that was his time machine right there, man. You know,
yeah.
You'd be surprised what a sandwich baggie full of mid-grade meth will do. You know.
Yeah, exactly, dude. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that one because I was just like, that was my favorite part about that article was definitely his manner of proving that he was from the future, because everybody knows that unless you've got like a can of oysters with an expiration date from the future, how do you really prove it? You know?
Right.
Anyway, so this next one was fucking bizarre, man. And it kind of just drops off at the end, and I haven't seen anything past this, but it was covered by CNN, and that's who I pulled it from. A traffic stop turns up whiskey, a gun, and a rattlesnake, police say, and that was before they found powdered uranium in the car.
Jesus. Well, what is powdered uranium used for?
That's a good question. I don't know, but they said, well, I'll go through the article real quick. So dude gets pulled over at 11 a.m. In, where was this? I don't remember where this was, actually.
I think it's in Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma. Yeah, there we go. So he's pulled over around 11 a.m. because of expired tags. So he had a passenger with him, this Rachel Rivera, and she had a gun. Okay, and she is also a former felony conviction, so she got pressed with charges for possession of a firearm after, and being a former felon. So then, once they figured out, they ran his tags, found out that the car was stolen. So they were like, all right, well, now we got to search the car, you know. And so they find a bottle of Kentucky Deluxe whiskey and a rattlesnake in the back seat. Now, the rattlesnake was in like a terrarium or whatever. So it was actually, they actually went out of their way to mention that, like, you know, it was fine. The rattlesnake, it should be noted, was happily stored in a terrarium in the back seat.
Right.
But anyway, so they find all this shit. Then they find a canister of radioactive powdered uranium.
Okay, here's my question.
Yeah.
How the fuck would a beat cop know that?
What, that it was powdered uranium?
Yeah. I mean, you're like, oh shit, we got a rattlesnake, boys. How do you know it's a rattlesnake? Well, it looks like this got a rattle on its tail. Okay, yeah,
it's rattling its tail.
That makes sense. And then he picks up like a coffee canister, and he's like, oh my god, uranium 235. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Like,
so they did say in the article,
it was clearly marked. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Had a piece of duct tape on it.
Well, it was glowing, so I mean, they figured it was radioactive now. Right. But anyway, they said that basically that when they come across something like that, let's see. When that happens, of course, we call in a company that deals with that specifically, and it's taken safely into possession. The uranium is the wild card in this situation. No fucking shit, man. So I think what actually happened is they found a powdered substance. And then once the whoever showed up to deal with an unknown powdered substance, they were able to conclude that it was uranium or whatever.
Got it.
But yeah, and so I don't know why they ended the article with saying the rattlesnake brought no additional charges. I don't think like having a rattlesnake as in a enclosed container is a problem or against the law. So, but anyway, the weird
maybe something to do with like exotic pets or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think rattlesnakes would be considered an exotic pet though. Now, cockatoos. No, just kidding. Anyway, so yeah, I just thought that was fucking bizarre that they found like fucking uranium in the back of this car.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, so we'll go ahead and cruise on to the meat and potatoes of episode 57 of the Tether Radio podcast.
Okay.
So we hadn't hated on the Zuck in a hot minute, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We laid off.
Yeah, so we need to put those Facebook gloves back on and just start fucking speed bagging this dude's nog.
Yeah.
But so Facebook's getting hit with a $5 billion, that's with a B, a $5 billion fine from the FTC, and even though that is an astronomical amount of money, it's not to Facebook. So, as everybody, I'm sure, is more than well aware, especially if you've been listening to Tether Radio for any amount of time, Facebook is an extremely, I don't know, it's extremely insidious and nefarious, in my opinion. But so basically, they're getting hit with this after all of these violations about the privacy of user data. And the interesting thing about all of this is the fact that they got hit with this $5 billion fine, and their stocks went up, which that's kind of fucking weird,
right?
But to put it in perspective in regards to the amount of money that they're being fined, the last quarter, Facebook's revenue was $15 billion. The last quarter.
Right.
Now, last year, their profit, so what they pulled in, man, after everything was said and done, was $22 billion. So
right.
this is just, I mean, this is fucking a drop in the bucket for them. No lessons are being learned, you know. And I don't know. I mean, like, somebody was quoted. I was trying to remember who was quoted in here. But they were basically like, I mean, they need to add another fucking zero on there if you want. Oh, here, Kara Swisher, which that name sounds really familiar.
Kara Swisher, she is a host for Recode, the podcast Recode.
Gotcha.
Do you know the one I'm talking about?
No, I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it. So
yeah, so it's Recode, let's see, Recode, it's Recode Decode maybe, podcast, and I think it's Kara Swisher. That's who hosts it. So anyway, what'd she say? She's like a talking head.
She was Well, she was basically just had said, yeah, you got to add another zero on there to even get their fucking attention, you know? Because I mean, which obviously 50 billion. I mean, I would say that you couldn't warrant that if, you know, it needs to be more. I just don't
think that people, like, this sounds absurd, right? But like, I don't think fucking people understand how, like, even the people that are like, oh, we got to penalize, you know, the politicians are like, we've got to penalize these people. I don't think they really understand, like, actually, let me back that up. They either don't understand how big these fucking companies are, or like actually what's going on, and how it's not even a slap on the wrist, right?
Yeah.
Or they do understand, and they're like totally aligned, you know. Which I kind of think it's probably the latter.
Yeah, that's what I would agree with you, man, because I think that honestly, all these people, it's like, you know, I have become an absolute, like, what is it, cynical individual.
I've become cynical. Yep.
Yeah. So in this day and age, and I swear, dude, it's basically these politicians are sending out these tweets that it's like, oh, you know, whatever. Facebook needs you know, heavier regulations, this, that, and the other, as Facebook's like sneaking some money into their like back pocket kind of thing. And I honestly think that's what it is, man.
So I think that, so I was talking to Martha about this.
Yeah.
Right. Little slight side note.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had the Starbucks cold brew?
No.
That comes in a bottle from the store?
Mm-mm.
It's the best fucking coffee like I've ever tasted, dude. And I'm saying mathematically magnitudes of order. Like, wow. It is delicious. It's crazy. It's crazy how good it is. And so anyway, my point is, I've not been drinking
for Starbucks.
Well, I've not been drinking a lot of hot coffee. And Martha was like, "You got to taste this shit." And I'm like, "I'm not interested in this shit," you know. Yeah. And we had some, and I was like, "Oh my god, like what is in this?" Right? Yeah, like it's incredible. And so I made the comment jokingly this morning. I'm like, "Dude, I wonder what there's got to be something in there, because you like take a drink and it's like lights your brain up, man. It's just like unbelievably good." Yeah. And she goes, "You know, like we got to watch, like, you know, becoming, you know, total conspiracy theorists, right? Because like you and Daniel the other day, I heard you guys talking about, like, you know, how it would be like a strong move for, you know, a group that wanted control of, you know, kind of mind control, right? Or you know, I guess let's say ambition control to like make sure that fucking THC is in most things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and because, you know, whatever, it was illegal and now it's here. And if people are like sitting around and just like in a stupor, you know, playing Fortnite in a fucking stupor or whatever, you know, like, or on Twitter in a stupor, what they're not doing is looking at, you know,
they're not actively thinking first.
Right,
of all.
Right. That's exactly right. And so anyway, you and I were just like like joking about that, talking about that, just kind of pushing that idea around, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so what I told her, because this is to your comment about being cynical. What I told her is that, like, I don't really see it that way, right? Because it's not like, I don't think everything is a conspiracy, right? But what I think is that it is important to continue to ask questions about things, even things that you think you're certain of, right?
Yeah.
Because if you refuse to change your mind based on new information, dude, your life will leave you behind, and it will be a very sad existence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the only thing that really makes this world super interesting and dynamic, I mean, fast forward 1,000 years, dude, it doesn't matter what you or I do in this life. Nobody's going to fucking know. You know what I mean? I'm sitting in Atlanta, Georgia right now. I am 100% sure that there was some multimillionaire who was a big fucking deal in 1970. I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I'm sure they were, movers and shakers at the key parties or whatever the fuck, right? And so my point is that, like, the reason I say that is because I'm just saying, like, taking, like, really thinking deeply about your life and thinking deeply about, like, the way things are and why things are headed in the way that they are. Like, that's something that's just, like, really uniquely human and, like, satisfying in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
To be able to be like, what about this? Like, critical thinking. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And so you say cynical, and honestly, man, I just think that, like, it's like being willing to, like, try something and fuck it up, and just to kind of, like, learn from it. And I think that, like, you don't have to, like, start a company to do that. You don't have to, like, be like, well, I'm going to try learning, watercolor painting techniques. Like, you can do that just by, like, thinking about things in different ways, right?
Yeah.
And then being like, well, that maybe that does make sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe that doesn't make sense or whatever. And it's like, and I think that's kind of really what it is. It's like, it's less about being a total cynic and simply saying, like, what is the incentive for somebody to tell me, exactly what's going on? And by the way, even if they think they're telling me exactly what's going on, it's from their perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which could be wildly different than my perspective. Well,
and I think that honestly, just there have been so many things that basically are not what they appear to be, kind of thing, that it's like, you do have to be constantly, like, questioning and just like you said, reassessing as you gather more information, kind of thing,
right?
Because it's just obviously you probably you asked me 5 years ago about some kind of whatever socioeconomic, situation or whatever, and I would say that I probably would respond differently than today, Yeah. And so it's just one of those things that, I think that we just have to, like you said, it's not about being cynical. It's just about being never just accepting information for exactly what it is, kind of thing. Just always looking past what's being presented to you, I guess.
Yeah. And what's shitty about this, to me, what's really shitty about this line of thinking right now is that, like, I don't consider myself, like, and maybe this is naive, right? But I don't consider myself to be, like, like, squarely liberal or squarely conservative. Like, I just don't see that. The world is not that. That's not how the fucking world works, right? You don't just you don't just pick a team for all eternity,
Yeah.
And the thing that I really don't like is that if I say I think women should have the right to choose what they want to do with their bodies, right? And yes, there are nuances around, like, should a woman be able to, like, have a baby at 9 months, bring it to term, and then, like, throw it off a cliff? Like, probably that's a bad idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if somebody, so, like, there are finer points, and this is, like, where the devil's always in the details. But my point is that, like, I could have that view, right? But then why can't I also have the view that's just like, if you could commit a crime, there should be repercussions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
and how that boils over to our conversation about immigration is just really, really interesting. There was this video the other day, and I'll be brief here so that we can continue to move on. But there's this video the other day about with AOC interviewing a guy from, God, I'm gonna fuck it up. It's like I think the Department of Homeland, maybe, right? Or maybe it's a. Hang on. I don't want to. I want to give everybody good information. Give me 10 seconds here.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I just looked it up. And she suggested eliminating the Department of Homeland Security.
No, but there was a guy that she was interviewing yesterday, and it was gosh, it was like an official proceeding, right? And this guy, let's see, interview. I know what to search. Separations.
Was it a fellow representative?
No, it was a guy from I think he was from the Department of Homeland Security. I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, I'll have to look it up and get it to you. But let's see. And so what was so interesting is that this guy is just like, she's like, so was it your policy that you signed off on, to that says that there's zero tolerance and that children must be separated from their parents at the border, right? And he's like, yes, I think that zero tolerance should be there, and like we have rules and laws, and I think those laws should be followed. And she's like, so was it your policy? And he was like, well, let me explain something to you. If I am with my child, right, and I get pulled over for a DUI and I'm drunk, I'm separated from them, right? And she's like, well, you have to understand that people who are seeking asylum here are not committing any law or not committing a crime. And he's like, that's not true. If you want to come and seek asylum in the correct way, you go through a port of entry.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's just interesting because it's like the human side of this, fuck yeah, I get it. I absolutely get it, right? And it's like my brain is kind of gets pulled in a couple different directions because yes, I get it. Why? Like, no, I do. If somebody is like seriously threatened by gangs in fucking Honduras, and the gang is like, if I see your ass here tomorrow, I'm gonna kill you. Yeah, get the fuck out of there. Absolutely. Yes, I can understand why you would risk life and limb to protect your kid. You've got one, dude. What would you not do? You would do anything. But where I get a little lost is this idea of like, you can go anywhere. You're choosing to go here, and you're choosing to do it in a very specific way. And that to me, and again, I've just been thinking a lot about this because we've been having this conversation in our company right now. We're growing and things are interesting and exciting, but it's like, where does accountability for one person or group start, and the other one stop, and the other one start, right? And like that's the thing is, it's like I think personally, I would love to have like as many people that want to like go through the process and come and like contribute to the United States in a positive way. Fuck yeah. I would hope,
dude, that's how the United States has become what it's become.
That's what we are.
Yeah.
That is what we are. That is the power of this country.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting how we've gotten this conversation so twisted around, such that it's like, no, I think the people should follow the laws, and they're like, well, you're a white nationalist. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's just, and so, and again, there's a lot of like anchoring and re-anchoring and like bullshit in there. But I don't know how we got down this thing, but it's just it's an interesting time, So
well, to bring it full circle, there's a reason that laws exist. There's a reason for regulations and all that stuff. And for Facebook in this scenario, I mean, they have not been following that shit in the fucking least.
And no, they shouldn't have. And dude, that's why I remember what I was gonna say. That's why you got to watch this Black Mirror episode, right?
Yeah.
Because it really speaks to like, dude, these people, like it's already happened. Like the genie's already out of the bottle.
Yeah.
Like they know more about you than anyone.
Yeah.
And they're abusing it. And I think that like as we look at this, you know, I mean, really, dude, Facebook, you know, but I mean, this is what's so stupid. Facebook should be, I was going to say Facebook should be, you know, pulled apart, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that we live in a world where like that means as much as it used to, right? Because if you're vending in code, it's like you pull it apart. It's like, dude, really, on a long enough timeline, like this fucking code's a commodity anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like you're saying like you can't have access to your big factories that it takes you billions of dollars to build, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't know how you penalize them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, probably cash for now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like I feel like maybe moving more toward like a percentage of like, you know, whatever, which obviously 5 billion is a percentage of their whatever revenue, or you know, but a larger percentage that would actually shake the company kind of thing,
right?
You know. But I won't belabor the point. It's just kind of incredible because yeah, I mean they've been caught red-handed time and time again, and this is what has come of it. Nothing,
right?
You know,
right.
so. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and cruise on to this next one. I thought this was kind of interesting, and since Joseph, you've actually worked with some VCs and stuff, right? So you probably have a little bit more insight than I could probably drop.
Yeah.
In regards to this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so blitzscaling, which I actually had to look up, right, when you had suggested this. Blitzscaling is just I guess to put a fine point on it, a douchey VC term. It's like get big fast, fuck things up, just build the plane on the way down or whatever.
It's Viagra for your business.
Yeah, that's right. Like move fast and break things. All these like silly fucking things or whatever. But I think that it's a really interesting idea, and I think that it's one that I'm super glad that you brought it to the table, because I think a lot of people, like Silicon Valley is like, I guess let me back up. In order to understand why growing a company really quickly in this way could be harmful, right? Mm-hmm. You have to understand how venture capital works, right? And this is kind of an interesting mental exercise, right?
Yeah.
So when you read about a company so just think of money as a widget, right? Uh-huh. And so when you think about a company that like a Andreessen Horowitz, right? Mm-hmm. And they say it's a $5 billion fund and blah, 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 blah. The way that venture capital companies work is that they have a series of funds, right? Mm-hmm. And so they'll go to like the Los Angeles firemen's pension fund, right? Yeah. Or the California teachers pension fund, or the an endowment from Harvard or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And or a huge insurance company, right? Mm-hmm. And they will present so venture capital is very risky capital, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you raise a fund, and this is like a rule of thumb, they say in VC, at least one of your portfolio companies needs to be able to return the fund. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of venture capital is a complete failure, right? Doesn't make any money, loses money, right? And so, but it's sexy because it's like this like Gordon Gekko on steroids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it is you are just vending in fast moving targets that get built, quickly and whatever. Okay, so that's number one. So the venture capitalist job is not to make money in the first step. It is to place money. That's an important distinction, right? Yeah, yeah. That means that if you raise $5 billion, you have to put it into something, right? Mm-hmm. And so it brings up this conversation, and this is a little bit long-winded, but the context will be helpful as we get to the punchline, right? Yeah. So it brings up this conversation that like when you do diligence on a company, it's extremely time-consuming, and so only venture capital funds that are big typically concentrate on what's known as leading rounds, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other VCs kind of piggyback on the work they've already done, right? Yeah. And so you'll have a lead and you'll have follow-on, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of important on the structure. So $5 billion, they've got to get it placed. They've got to get it placed in a relatively short time frame, right? Mm-hmm. Based on what's known as the vintage and harvest of the fund. Vintage is when the fund is set up. Harvest is when they plan to return capital to the investors, okay? Mm-hmm. But the model of venture capital, it's not like you have $5 billion in your fucking pocket, right? There's a management fee and there's a performance fee, and that's actually how you make your money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
We're going to start a VC fund and we're going to put $100 million in there, you would be shocked to know that we would be running a very fucking lean operation. That's why typically when people spin up VCs and become partners in VCs, they've had a big exit, right? Mm-hmm. Or they've worked their way up to senior leadership and management in a massive VC. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to hit a certain scale before you're actually making as much money as people think you're making, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So just to recap, tons of money's coming in here. You got to get it placed quickly. If you're a smaller VC, you're looking for follow-on so that you can get your money placed quickly, right? Mm-hmm. Because diligence is super expensive to do, and if you're a big VC with a ton of analysts, you can get that shit done quickly. If you're a small VC, you've got to figure out what the big VCs are doing and kind of put your portfolio together accordingly. So So really, what am I describing? Money chases deals. Like that's how it works. Because if I'm yes, it seems like we've got a great idea, Daniel. We're going to go raise VC. Mm-hmm. Once you clear a couple of bars, meaning that like you actually have a real business and your business actually has product market fit or what they traction quote, right? Mm-hmm. Raising money is not really the hard part. Mm-hmm. It's just trying to figure out who you want your investors to be, because there's some strategy between behind who you want to raise money from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So all this is to say, you end up in this fucking crazy situation where like money is chasing deals, and once those deals are found, they end up being and once these deals are found, there is an odd incentive to pour a ton of money into what look like good deals, right? Yeah. Yeah. When you pour a ton of money in, and then on the other side with the companies, there is this saying, drink while the faucet's on. So if you can raise money, raise as much money as you possibly can, right? Yeah, yeah. So the issue here is that, like, fundamentally, it is almost impossible to say, hey, you and I have a business that does scooters, electric scooters, right? And now we've raised $500 million. Like, think through the things that have to happen once you raise that money. You got to hire people. You got to train people. You got to buy more scooters. You got to get the scooters out there. Like, there's not enough time to get that money deployed in a really efficient way that's based on, like, the numbers that must be generated simply by the passage of time. Yeah. Like, you can't be making fucking decisions on everything unless I have data, and the only way that I can have data is by time passing. Yeah. You end up in these crazy situations where companies have gotten super huge, and they're just totally being led by like the stars on where to put money and how to deploy this capital.
So is it's kind of like literally trying to build a house like overnight kind of thing.
That is exactly right. So what you end up doing is you have this big, shiny, fucking amazing facade on this 200-story skyscraper, and somebody forgot to pour the concrete.
Yeah, gotcha.
And the concrete being like the fundamental value that the entire thing's built on. Yeah. So so this is really interesting, because now you've got a situation, dude. I mean, wrap your fucking mind around this. Uber went public, right? Mm-hmm. In their docs, in their paper for going public, their offering documents, right? Mm-hmm. They mention, we may never make money. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're living.
That just blows my fucking mind, dude.
Well,
Like, I don't understand.
so well, here's the way to think about it. If I'm a private equity guy,
Yeah.
I actually might be into that, right? I mean, if I'm a stock guy, I really don't give a fuck because I'm trading your shares, and like if I'm a value investor, sure, I might care, right? But if I'm like momentum trading, or if I'm like, I'm just like actively trading your stock, I don't really care. I just have to know how the market's going to react to that to your shares, right? Value investors would shit their pants and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? A PE guy, private equity guy, actually might be excited about this because the sum of the parts is typically more than the parts connected, right?
Yeah.
And so if somebody bought Uber, which this is absurd to think about at this moment, but bought Uber and said, okay, we're going to hack their company apart and sell these different parts of it to other companies that seem relevant or whatever, or that would like to buy these parts, you could actually probably turn a pretty hearty profit on it, right?
Yeah.
So, but PE is kind of like at that situation, if you're doing like a leverage buyout and then you're going to like hack the company apart, it's kind of like vulture shit, and the thing's got to die before you eat it,
Yeah.
It's just this blitz scaling, and I'll wrap with this. This blitz scaling, ends up in a situation where basically incentives are just totally misaligned. You've got founders that end up getting pounded into sometimes a minority stake in the business that they founded. That's not uncommon, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got these VCs that are basically playing financial hot potato with each other, where it's like, hey, we overvalued this company, or introduced some metric to allow us to overvalue this company. We've overvalued this company by way of introducing some wonky ass metric like users equal future cash flow, which we found out in hindsight isn't necessarily true.
Yeah.
And then we turn around and we get another VC to slap a higher value on it, and thus what we owned, previously is worth more. And you kind of just continue to ratchet this shit up until you potentially take a company public, or the company gets so fucking big that the investments are from these sovereign wealth funds that are just like have to have a place to put the money.
Yeah.
And again, the most important thing to remember about this, and this is like fucking mind roasting. We're living in a world where there are negative interest rates in Europe, which means if you keep your money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
You are getting dinged for having your money in the bank.
Yeah.
You do not get an interest rate. It is there's so much money out there that people are just like looking for alpha, right? Anywhere that they find it. So anyway, that's the thing, is now you've got these massive bloated things that are being built and overvalued, and everybody's throwing money at it, and it's just like this flavor of economics that fucking kind of doesn't make sense. And so that's what they're saying, I think, in this article, that it's you're just building quickly and you're not concentrating on delivering
it's just like
value
pumping money into shit and basically like falsely inflating it, kind of.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Correct. And it's kind of a function of just these huge money management groups that fucking have to have a place to put this money.
Yeah.
So they find a sexy deal, they put it there, and because there's so much money, it's overvalued.
Yeah.
We did a road show briefly. I'll mention this briefly. We did a road show when I was working at the hedge fund. We did a road show over in London, Hamburg, Berlin. What else did we go? Zurich. Some big kind of old financial centers in Europe, and I had this late night sitting there with this whiskey with this insanely German dude who was managing a Swiss like a Swiss pension fund, right? And he was just like, look, like, because what we were the things that we were pitching had stratospheric growth, like crazy, right? And he was like, we're just not interested. He was like, I don't want a 50x, I don't want a 100x, I don't want a 5x.
Yeah.
He goes, I want 4 to 6%.
Yeah.
Right, because my fund is like $100 billion or some insane number. And he was like, and we can't buy any more gold. We own all the gold we can buy. Right? We can't buy any more real estate in Switzerland. Like we just need, and so it's like there's this like tone of desperation in finding these opportunities because the world is so interconnected and most of the opportunities are available and known. And so anyway, it's an interesting idea, man.
Yeah, for sure. Faux show.
So trucking on. We talked a little bit about this earlier about THC and everything.
What's
Demetrix. I had never heard of this.
No, I hadn't either, and honestly, I didn't realize that that how the current, which and I'm not going to make that comment, but I was just rethinking it. I don't think that because they do talk about in this article, which I pulled from TechCrunch, it was called Demetrix raises $50 million to brew cannabis. I didn't even realize that this was doable kind of thing. But anyway, so what is currently being developed is in cannabis, you have THC, but you have that is one of the cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, of which there are apparently hundreds kind of thing.
Right.
So, and we're currently studying the different cannabinoids to figure out if one is whatever could maybe be used medicinally, if we can isolate just that one, and it might not give somebody like the euphoric feeling that the Delta 9 THC would give kind of thing. So It's like, okay, what we want to do, it kind of along the same lines as what people are looking into for opioids, because they want to have the pain suppression, but they don't want to have the abuse potential and addiction potential and all that stuff. So they're trying to figure out how to get some isolated, in this sense, or in regards to this article, an isolated cannabinoid that will basically have maximum efficacy and zero side effects and zero abuse potential and all that stuff.
Okay.
Well, so this Demetrix company, I was trying to remember. Let's see. They're apparently working with what is that guy's name? His last name's Kiesling. Jay Kiesling, who's a UC Berkeley researcher. They're working with this guy and working on a cheaper way to literally use a yeast to produce cannabinoids. So basically, you would be taking the plant material completely out of the picture. You would be synthesizing cannabinoids. So apparently, it's actually been around for a hot minute. And I looked into there was a synthetic THC that was it's called dronabinol. And it's currently on the market, and I can't remember the brand name for it. I think it was Marinol, but anyway, it's given to AIDS wasting patients, kind of thing. So people that, or at least it's FDA approved
to spur appetite.
Correct. Yeah, to spur appetite and just some kind of relief, kind of thing. But yeah, so at this point, it's not feasible because it's still considerably cheaper to just derive the cannabinoids from plants, because that process is I'd say we've got it down at this point. But the problem is you're not isolating one cannabinoid. You're getting an array, when you're deriving it from the plants. So they're hoping that, which they were talking about the cannabinoid market. They expect it to by 2029 to be $100 billion market, which that would not surprise me, to be honest. And I mean, as fast as technology moves, I would be very surprised if this stuff isn't probably on, at least making it into dispensaries and shit, as like a tablet or something like that, probably in the next like 10 years kind of thing.
Right.
Or not probably the next 10 years, probably the next 5 years, because obviously they're citing the 2029 thing. But I just think I would say that it's further along than they kind of lead you to believe. But the problem is it's just too expensive at this point. So once we are able to, or once they're able to scale it up and have the technology make it cheaper than deriving it from plants and stuff, this is going to be the future for people that are like advocates of medicinal marijuana. This is what it's going to be,
Yeah, I mean,
So,
the plant's just a delivery mechanism, right? And so,
yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's such a. I mean, it's like at this point, like you can measure percentages of like THC, but like I said, there's a shit ton of different molecules that make up THC kind of thing,
Right.
So once they're able to isolate one and say, hey, this is 100% delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol or whatever, then that's when people are going to start taking it more seriously as a like actual medicine kind of thing.
Right.
Because then you'll be able to actually regulate it and say, hey, this is exactly the response you're going to get. But anyway, I just thought it was kind of interesting because, I mean, they're literally going to be brewing cannabinoids.
Right.
So using yeast. But anyway, I didn't want to stick on this one for too long because I really wanted to get into this next one that you had sent over from the New Yorker.
Yeah, so this one's pretty fascinating. It's called "Why Facts Don't Change Our Minds." Right, new discoveries about the human mind show the limitations of reason. Right, and I'm going to read a couple of quotes from here because they just do a good job of kind of bringing through what exactly. Or bring to light exactly what the kind of the nugget of the article is, right? But in a few words, what this is saying is that the reason, or I don't want to use the term reason because I need to use it in another context. Human rational thought and reasoning serves a very specific purpose, and basically until it's no longer useful. Yeah. And then there's a quote in this article that I absolutely love, and actually I was gonna hang on to it, but let me just read it real quickly. Let's see. The quote is let's see. Maybe we'll have to get to it in a second because I seem to have lost it.
Is it the once formed?
We'll come back.
Impressions are remarkably perseverant.
No. So it's cool. As I go through this, I've got a couple things bookmarked, and we'll get to it. Okay. So here's the place that I'll start here, right? Let's see. Gosh, I put all these little markers in my article here, and now it's kind of screwy. Bear with me 2 seconds here. Right. Okay. Here it is. Reason is an adaptation to the hypersocial niche humans have evolved for themselves, right? Habits of mind that seem weird or goofy or just plain dumb from an intellectualist point of view prove shrewd when seen from the social interactionist perspective, right? So it's like working through, I guess, put it in a different way. It depends on what your goal is, right? Like, so if your goal is to lead a group of people, you may not be able to use pure logic to lead people. You might have to also use emotion, and you can't arrive at this exact understanding of what to apply emotionally simply by logical reasoning, right? And so they go on. Consider what's become known as confirmation bias, the tendency people have to embrace information that supports their beliefs and rejects information that contradicts them. One of many forms of faulty thinking that have been identified, confirmation bias is among the best cataloged. It's the subject of entire textbooks worth of experiments, right? And so they go through just a couple of experiments, which I'll save you the details on, that kind of show that like what people think they understand about the world is actually not that accurate. And then when they're questioned on, and so there is this point where people can be, reasoned or convinced of another angle, right? And so let me read this other section here, right here. There was little advantage in reasoning clearly. Right, they're basically what they're talking about. So, living in small groups of hunter-gatherers, our ancestors were primarily concerned with their social standing and with making sure they weren't the ones risking their lives on the hunt while others loafed around the cave. Right, there was little advantage in reasoning clearly, while much was to be gained from winning arguments. Now, here's what's interesting, right?
Yeah,
like we are. Absolutely. Like, I don't know that ever went away, but that's become evident at scale again, Yeah. Like, social credibility, like being a Twitter personality or whatever, doesn't take fucking logic.
Yeah.
It simply takes charisma,
It simply takes going to the grocery store and licking some ice cream.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it, right? And so among the many issues our forebears didn't worry about were the deterrent effects of capital punishment and the ideal attributes of a firefighter, right? Nor these are references from earlier in the article. Nor did they have to contend with fabricated studies or fake news or Twitter. It's no wonder then that today reason often seems to fail us. As Mercer and Sperber write, this is one of the many cases in which the environment changed too quickly for natural selection to keep up. So they go through, and then I'll read this last part and we can chat about it for a second, right? People believe they know more than they actually do. What allows us to persist in this belief is other people. So they give the example of like a toilet and people understanding how a toilet works, because they were like, everybody knows what a toilet is, right? But then when people said, do you know how a toilet works? They're like, yeah, sure, totally. But then they actually didn't, right? And so in the case of my toilet, someone else designed it so that I can operate it easily. This is something humans are very good at. We've been relying on one another's expertise ever since we figured out how to hunt together, which was probably a key development in our evolutionary history. So well do we collaborate, Sloman and Fernbach argue, that we can hardly tell where our own understanding ends and others begins.
Ooh.
So, so it's really interesting, dude. Like,
that's super interesting.
And so they get into, when you take this and start applying it to politics, things get really, really complicated, right?
Yeah.
And so because you've got like framing and anchoring and reframing and and red herrings, and you've got all these things that are being introduced, and so you like being able to actually reason through this, is maybe impossible, right?
Yeah.
And so, so they wrap by saying, which these books, I'm going to mention them real quick. One is called The Enigma of Reason. The other one is called The Knowledge Illusion. And the third is called Denying to the Grave, right? And it mentions they were all written before the November election, and yet they anticipate Kellyanne and Conway and the rise of alternative facts. These days, it can feel as if the entire country has been given over to a vast psychological experiment being run by no one or by Steve Bannon, right?
Yeah.
Rational agents would be able to think their way to a solution, but on this matter, the literature is not reassuring, right?
Yeah.
So that's just it. I mean, I think in a nutshell, man, look, you cannot reason with unreasonable people, right? Like you cannot, apply logic to people that are illogical. Like it's just not the way that it works.
Yeah.
And as we think through like the human tribe and like what, I guess to put a very fine point on it, gets shit done, sometimes it's not reason. I just went through a situation, dude, with an insurance company that we're working with on our project, right? And we broke down the way that they were defining risk pools into these categories, and then we kind of systematically showed, how we were approaching these different categories to illustrate that they're already insuring the riskiest thing and that we fall well below the risk threshold, right?
Yeah.
And we still didn't win. We still did not get what we needed. And so it was just one of these things where it's like, okay, one of two things is happening. Either these guys are like not going to continue in this line of insurance, or somebody's so dug in, they're like, no, I'm not going to have egg on my face. Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like you cannot reason through everything. And I think that's one of the things that dude. I mean, it's like, we were talking about this last week. That you're a human being, right?
Yeah.
Do you know
a human being?
You know that you are the smartest of the legumes. You are a human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are different than a kidney. You are different than a black bean.
No, but anyway, yeah. So you're oh my god.
Did you know that?
What?
Peanut is a legume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me, bro. Oh my god.
Anyway,
you're a human being.
You're a human being, right? Could somebody convince you otherwise? Like, could there be a thing that happened where you'd be like, fuck, maybe I'm not human? Like, I'm pretty convinced I am, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that it would be difficult to persuade me to think otherwise.
But my point is, I'm so convinced I'm a human being that if I, did the old, T2 Judgment Day and cut my arm open and there were like, there were mechanical things in there, I'd be like, this isn't fucking real. I'm dreaming. This doesn't make any sense. Like, you know what I mean? So there could be like something, hypothetically, a total fact that's presented to you, right?
Yeah.
And you could just be like, no, I'm not accepting that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To accept that would shake everything that you've ever known. I'm telling you right now, not to get like super fucking wild with this conversation, this is precisely what is happening with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Precisely what is happening with Bitcoin. Like, people cannot...
it's shaking the foundation of, like, basically the economy kind of thing.
People think about value at the most basic level.
Yeah.
Like, you work your ass off for many people, for a number that you kind of see that goes into your bank account, right? And you're just like shifting ones and zeros back and forth, right?
Yeah.
And it's not real to you, but you haven't thought about it. And so it's like when people are like, well, gold's one of the most valuable things we have or whatever. And it's like, sure, but Japan just landed Hayabusa, I think, 2 on a fucking asteroid. That happened this past week.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, our access to value, which we've defined as like rare shit that we just found here on Earth, when all of a sudden that completely fundamentally changes and you now have a goddamn asteroid with 1 billion tons of gold on it, the price of gold goes to 0 fundamentally. It has to. That's the way it works, right? And so it's just interesting. It's interesting. You believe what you believe, I guess. Anyway, moving on here.
Well, yeah. So we've got. I was checking the time. We got probably about About 10 minutes left, 10, 15 minutes. We got 3 articles left. Do you have a preference in regards to?
I think you need to do the next one for
Do
sure.
the next one, and then you wanna wrap with the Google stuff, or do you want to wrap with the Microsoft?
I think we wrap with wrap with Microsoft because that conversation about pins was very interesting.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Well, so we'll cruise through this one kind of quick. I'm sure. Well, I don't know if our listeners are familiar with an influencer by the name of Belle Delphine, I guess. I was not familiar with her until literally the incident of basically she's decided to sell her bathwater kind of thing, and which is weird as fuck in the first place that first of all anybody would want to. I don't know, I'm sure it's somebody's fetish out there, but anyway, so
what are you supposed to do with it?
Well, and that's yeah, well, they specifically say do not drink it. So
right.
But yeah, dude, it's just fucking that's a whole different conversation. But anyway, so it's this chick that basically I don't know. Out of all the shit that I've seen from articles, I haven't seen her have anything to do with gaming, but she's got this. She's got the nickname Gamer Girl, and basically she looks like straight out of like an anime, like manga or something.
Right.
But anyway, so I pulled this one though from The Verge. If you bought influencer bathwater, could you test it for DNA? Now, I thought this was kind of interesting because the talk about DNA testing and like whatever 23andMe, Ancestry.com, all these people that are aggregating just huge amounts of data for DNA, and like I'm sure fucking mapping it, to the point to where it could be cross-referenced if need be in the future.
Right.
So somebody just by chance made a post on Reddit and was like, oh, well, I got this Gamer Girl bathwater thing and I tested it and it didn't test for, or it didn't have any human DNA in it. And somebody's basically promptly debunked it by saying, well, she hadn't even sent that shit out, so you couldn't have, got your hands on it, blah, blah, blah. And it was just, that's how it was left. But then it brought to question, well, wait a second. Could someone that was selling, or that was buying this bath water, could they take it and have a lab assess it and pull DNA from it? And the answer is yes. Because honestly, and I was talking to Megan about this, a lot of these companies, or I'm not going to say a lot, I know at least some of these DNA companies, basically what you do is you'll swab the inside of your cheek and then drop it in a little bottle or whatever and send it in. Well, you're literally just swabbing for epithelial cells. Well, when you take a bath or shower or whatever, you're literally exfoliating yourself in the bath or shower or whatever. So the water's rinsing away epithelial cells.
Okay.
So it is totally and utterly reasonable to assume that you could pull from a bath by using either the bath water that's drained out, or even probably just swabbing like the tub sides and stuff like that and around the drain, that you could get enough of a sample to pull a DNA sample from it. And they actually talked about it in this article that there was a lady or a researcher by the name of Helen Page from the UK, and she basically goes on to say that yeah, you could totally do this, and it's just, this is so weird to me, I guess, that it's like unnerving because people make these decisions, like this chick or whatever, which I'm sure she doesn't give two shits, but you're basically selling your like DNA samples kind of thing. And
right.
even though, you you really wouldn't be able to do anything with it, because the only thing that you're going to be able to discern from pulling a DNA sample like this is that it's human, or whether or not it's human, kind of thing. So past that, you would have to know that you had her DNA sample to basically authenticate that it actually was her bathwater, kind of thing. And that's kind of what they get around to, because the lady was like, well, I don't know why, Dr. Page was like, I don't know why anybody would want to buy this shit, but I completely understand why you would want to make sure, you know, that you're actually getting the real deal. Because I mean, some of this shit was going on eBay for like multiples of thousands of dollars, and it was like a fucking like cup of bathwater, supposedly. So, just super weird, man. We're living in a fucking weird time, and which I'm sure everybody says that about every generation, but it's some bizarre shit.
Shit on blast, dude. Faux show. It's like it's fucking crazy, man. It's fucking crazy how just like and this is where we are. This is what we're doing. You know. Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit, because it was just one of these things that, I mean, hell, I that didn't even cross my mind when I originally read about like her selling bathwater. I was just like, well, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, you know? I had no idea who that person was at all.
I still don't know really who she is, man. I mean, like, I don't understand. Like, they call her an influencer, but I don't know what the fuck she's influencing. So
yeah.
But anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to this last one, because it was an interesting discussion, and I think that this is where everybody's headed in the tech realm. But Microsoft is making Windows 10 passwordless, and they're actually doing it sooner than later. I believe this, and this will be an opt-in thing. So if you want to keep using passwords and stuff, that's up to you for the time being. But they're trying to roll this shit out. I want to say. Oh wow! No, I guess it's already out, so you can opt into it now. Because they were saying that in the May 2019 update.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but there was a part of this that I thought was like infinitely interesting, right? Like, can you walk everybody through?
Yeah. I was going to circle back around. So basically, what they're wanting to do is they want to get rid of. Well, this is how I interpreted the article. They want to get rid of server-side password storage kind of thing, so that if and when, which honestly it's more when, not if, when these servers get hacked and information is retrieved from them, they don't want to be liable for users' passwords. And as of right now, that's how it works. It basically, you know, you have your computer, and you know it's stored server side in regards to passwords and stuff. Because anytime everybody has a computer that's connected to the internet, or at least it has been connected to the internet at some point, normally,
right.
And so as soon as it pings their servers, boom, you know, your password's stored over there. Well, what they're wanting to do is they want to move it to either like. I don't want to find they want to basically make it so that you either use the Windows Hello Face authentication, you use your fingerprints, or you use a PIN code. So when I was originally going through this, I was like, well, this kind of doesn't make sense, because normally PINs are going to be between 4 and 6 digits. And normally they're not. They're just numeric, you know. And so I was like, well, it seems like that would be kind of putting you at a higher risk just using a PIN. But the cool thing is the PIN, the way that the PINs work, or at least with this Windows authentication stuff, they basically have a 4-digit code that is only stored locally. So no matter what, their servers are never going to have their hands on your pin.
Yeah.
So it's stored on a device known as a trusted platform module, and it's basically a secure chip that keeps your pin locally stored to your device. And so servers can get hacked and all that jazz, and passwords are stolen, but your Windows Hello pin would not be affected in the least. I thought that was really interesting because I didn't realize. I always kind of wondered why pins were used so often, and especially for like banking and like stuff that you 100% don't want anybody else to have access to.
Yeah. Well, the honeypot is the collection, right? Yeah. The honeypot is the bank itself. It's not one person's account, right? Yeah. That's what you and I were talking about. And I think that's an interesting thing, which, by the way, if you do not use 2FA, like for all of your accounts, like shame on anyone that's listening to this. It is so simple to set up. Google Authenticator is the shit, you know, and it just reissues PIN numbers, right? Yeah. And then it's stored on your local device, and it's like, yes, it makes your accounts a bitch to get into, but that's probably a good thing if they're high value accounts, you know? Yeah. I'd rather it take me 10 minutes or 5 minutes for me to log into my bank than one, and know that it takes me 5 minutes to log into my bank, you know? Yeah. So
yeah, for sure. And the other thing is just in regards to all this stuff, the 2FA stuff, like, and I mean, obviously my Twitch account is not a I don't know what, it's not highly sought after. Yeah, exactly. But dude, so I'd set up 2FA with that, and I have gotten pinged so many times. It's the most bizarre thing. Well, I bet I get pinged once a week.
Here's what's crazy about those accounts. And actually, dude, I think did you turn me onto this, or some podcast I listened to like months ago, and they were talking about how there's like this complete like secondary black market, right? For Twitter handles, Twitch handles, things like that. Yeah. And it's very common for people just to like take that and start to build up a profile around it, right? Yeah. And so here's what's interesting. You getting pinged on that is telling, right? Like it's really, really telling. Like and here's what it's telling. It's telling about your other high value accounts. Yeah. Actually that, you know, I mean, dude, these companies are under assault 24 hours a day. Yeah. Yeah. Without a doubt, people are trying to break into your accounts right now. Fact. Absolute fact. So not just giving yourself like a you know, a chance, a snowball's chance, man. You know, it's crazy, but anyway,
So I believe with that, man.
Yeah, there. So this was episode 57?
57.
Jeez. All right, cool. Well, that was a lot of territory there, man. Sometimes on this podcast, I feel like we're like, you know, and don't forget that your micro machines are available. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And then you get to the end, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, we're done now.
Yeah, like I'm drunk.
Big gulps, eh? Well, see you later.
Yeah, see you, dude. All right, cool. So episode 57, hot goddamn, we are there. And should you like to send us any sort of message, we'd love to receive it. tetherradio@gmail.com. That's tetherradio@gmail.com. Twitter @tether_radio. Instagram @tether_radio. Facebook Tether Radio, all one word. We reach out. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Just listen to the motherfucker.
Yeah, and hop on whatever platform you listen to and drop us a little review if you don't mind. Yeah. It's much appreciated. It helps It helps get us a little bit more exposure, we're hoping at some point we might get thrown on the new and noteworthy on the old iTunes store. So
that's it. But you know what? We're going to continue to press forward on what we got going on over here. We actually have some cool things this week, DB?
Yeah.
So this week we'll be kicking out a cool little idea that we've been kind of kicking around, just to allow you to dip in and dip out of the Tether ecosystem a little bit better. So we'll be getting that out on Twitter and some of our other social, and you can take a look and see what you think. So this has been Tether Radio, episode 57. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Daniel.
And we are reminding you to stay tethered, dear friends. Talk to you in a week.